This year, I'm sorry to tell you, the United States Senate is going to be voting on a constitutional amendment to repeal the First Amendment. I am telling you, I am not making this up. Senator Chuck Schumer has announced the Senate Democrats are scheduling a vote on a constitutional amendment to give Congress the plenary power, the unlimited authority to regulate political speech. Because elected officials have decided they don't like it when the citizenry has the temerity to criticize what they've done. They don't like it when pastors in their community stand up and speak the truth. What it says is that politicians in Washington have unlimited constitutional authority to muzzle each and every one of you if you're saying things that government finds inconvenience.
Yeah, so to the credit of the audience, there was an audible when he said that, because it is a crazy idea, and it's a crazy idea that he believes. And I have the feeling that the audience probably eventually came around his way of thinking, but that is a crazy thing to say. The idea that the U.S., that the federal government, and state governments, by the way, it's not just the federal government, is going to have a little bit more control over how our elections are financed, are going to try to even the playing field just a little bit between the billionaires who are currently dominating political narratives, political discussion, political advertisements, and give a little bit more power and influence to the average American. That's the same as getting rid of the First Amendment. By the way, the idea that passing an amendment would change the Constitution, that's a crazy thing. That's not a crazy thing. That's what amendments do. They add something to the Constitution or they change the Constitution. That's what an amendment is. Ted Cruz should look up the definition somewhere. And I just want to step back for a second and take note of the fact that when Ted Cruz was starting to originally develop a name for himself, he was being pitched as the conservative intellectual in Washington, D.C. With him reading Green Eggs and Ham, does anyone still see him as some sort of intellectual heavyweight when it comes to discussing the real issues that are facing America today? I don't really think so. And so he goes on to talk about how this is going to silence pastors and things like that. He has a very weird idea of what the First Amendment actually is. I have a feeling that most of you watching this video right now probably do not have $1 billion. Many of you probably don't have $1 million. I know that I don't. He doesn't give a fuck about your First Amendment rights. He doesn't care that what you think or believe or feel about politics should have any bearing whatsoever on elections, because he thinks that you and everyone like you should be able to be stomped down by the boot of one insanely rich American oligarch. And I don't even just mean the Republican kind. The Koch brothers are a great example of it, but this guy, Steyer, I believe his name is, the liberal billionaire who's going to be throwing a bunch of money in the next election, I don't want him drowning out the voices of the regular Americans as well. He should have an influence. He's a citizen, but he shouldn't have more influence than 200 million Americans just by himself, and nor should the Koch brothers, and nor should Sheldon Adelson or any of the other conservative billionaires. And by the way, one final thought. He is so worried about pastors' freedom of speech being stamped out. What country is he living in? We give so many privileges to religious figures in America when it comes to speech, and particularly political speech. There are supposed to be laws that you can't maintain your tax-exempt status of a church if you engage in electioneering, but we know, especially since the days of George W. Bush, that many across the country are doing that, are specifically telling their congregations who to vote for, who not to vote for, what issues to vote based on. They are electioneering. They are already pressing the bounds of what the law is supposed to allow them to do to maintain the tax-exempt status that they rely on. They're doing okay when it comes to the First Amendment. Ted Cruz, man, I don't know if he's sort of being driven to more extreme statements, more extreme actions, because he doesn't have sort of the political cachet that he used to. People don't see him as the next conservative star necessarily. Maybe that's what it is. This guy is a psycho.